So we begin the second canto of the book of Yoga, the parable of the search for the soul. That is the title of the canto. And in the series of sections in Savitri, we are now on section 115, 115th section of Savitri. We have already seen earlier Savitri's condition in a certain way of speaking, helplessness, at the same time well poised, composed, she gathering herself, everything into the inner being of hers. She has become quiet, mute. In fact, her grief had become so intense, so powerful, that in itself turned into a person, and that grief's self became calm, mute, immutable, dumb-eyed, resolved. Now, it is in this state that Savitri's Yoga is about to begin. There is nothing now of this world, passion, vital impulses, relationships, thoughts. Nothing is going to disturb her at the moment. Her state is such that she has become a perfect support, a perfect adhara for the occult and spiritual things to happen in her. She is now a well-prepared adhara. It will not be shaken by anything. It is only when the personality is stabilized, when there is no disturbance at all, that the higher powers, when they enter in, can easily work in a person. Savitri has now opened herself to that working, that a higher power can come and work into her. She is not going to disturb the working of that power. So that is already a great siddhi, a yogic preparation she has accomplished. While she was enjoying the happiness of a married life, yet the yogic state of in which Savitri is something very remarkable. How does that happen? Normally, in the case of a common man who is turning towards spirituality, it takes long periods of time for any spiritual experience to happen in him. It doesn't happen today, tomorrow. It takes a long time before anything spiritual or occult can start working in the case of an ordinary aspirant soul. But here is Savitri, who is now ready to receive the spiritual guidance and go entirely, totally, unreservedly on the path which will be shown to her. She has already accomplished that siddhi. How did she do that? Well, actually, this is not the siddhi which she has acquired recently, in the past few days, past few weeks, past few months. It has been there with her, deep in the secret nature of hers, always there. She was born with that. And the moment the occasion comes, it expresses itself. Savitri has done the yoga through the ages, through lives, and it is that accumulated perfection, realization, which is now coming forward in the present birth of hers. Because it is from this point onward now that the new features of the yoga had to enter into her life. She has not to redo all that was already done by her in her past lives. With the present life, something new has to happen. She has become ready. It was during the entire period of 1 year in the company of Satyavan, in the company of the forest sages, in the spiritual atmosphere which are there all around, that the past got awakened in her, and it is that now which is launching her into the future. Her future has to begin with that. Let us read the opening passages of the canto. As in the vigilance of the sleepless night, to the slow, heavy-footed, silent hours, repressing in her bosom his load of grief, she sat, staring at the dumb tread of time and the approach of ever-nearing fate. A summons from her being's summit came, a sound, a call that broke the seals of night. Above her brows, where will and knowledge meet, a mighty voice invaded mortal space. It seemed to come from inaccessible heights, and yet was intimate with all the world, and knew the meaning, the steps of time, and saw eternal destinies, changeless scene, filling the far prospect of the cosmic gaze. Already the sweep of her realization, of her experience, of her beginning is as vast as a cosmic gaze. Already it is deep, profound, dense, powerful, as the power of herself, of her soul itself, a mighty voice. She could hold that mighty voice. She is not one who would be shattered by the impact of the voice. And that voice is a mighty voice also. She would not be. So the adhara, the support, is ready. The vessel to receive spiritual initiation is well baked, tapta. She has already done silent tapasya in her inner being and made the vessel ready to receive divine command. That is the state in which Savitri is there. This is what we are describing, what we see here in this brief introduction with which the Yoga of Savitri is being narrated to us. Already there are very significant hints given to us. One of the things which strikes us most here is the supernatural state in which all these things are happening. The character of Savitri's yoga is of the luminous, occult kind. It is more tantric in nature than Vedantic. Hers is going to be the yoga of the Tantra, not the yoga of the Adhyatma kind. She is going to launch on a very special yoga of the Tantra, not also so much the traditional Tantra, but the Tantra very specific to Savitri. She is there and already a high power comes and makes an entry into her forehead. That is an absolutely remarkable kind of beginning of the yoga. It doesn't happen in the case of an ordinary yogi. The Kundalini starts rising from below above, but here the impact is straight on her forehead. And it is on the forehead, Ajna Chakra, that she is receiving the command. Summons came to her from her being summit. From her being summit, the summons are coming to her. Ajna, command, is coming to her. Chakra, the wheel from which things will start moving now. That the command is for Savitri to get ready to receive the full force in her soul and in her spirit, so that she would meet death and conquer death and change fate. It is fated that Satyavan must die, but that has to be altered. It cannot be her fate really. And for that, the command has come. Savitri, rise, get up, do the yoga. House the divine power, divine Shakti in your soul. That is what it is saying. Now, the entry of this command is on the forehead center chakra or lotus, whatever you want to call it. This Ajna Chakra or this lotus here is of white color. It's a white lotus with just 2 petals. Now that itself is something significant, important also, of course. The 2 petals would mean will and knowledge, the divine will and the divine sight. They have opened out here. The will, the force with which things will be done here, sankalpa, will, jnana, knowledge, It is at that center Savitri is giving the command. Her will and her knowledge are getting awakened. These two petals would mean will and knowledge. It is by will that the divine fire is ignited in his soul, and it is that burns and receives the spiritual bounties, spiritual power, knowledge, whatever is required. It is by knowledge that she will know what to do and how to proceed. So the center is already awakened. The lotus petals have opened out with will and knowledge. Above her brows where will and knowledge meet, a mighty voice invaded mortal space. Savitri has taken the mortal birth. And it is in that mortal space that this lotus has now bloomed with the impact of the mighty voice. Knowledge and will have set themselves into operation. So this is the command, Ajna, which Savitri is going to receive at his place here. A summons from her being summit came, and will and knowledge have awakened here. Now that command seems to be coming from inaccessible heights. Savitri's origin is in the transcendent. And to the mortal creature, Savitri has taken a mortal birth. She is human, and therefore that origin of hers, the source of hers, is inaccessible. But the voice, the commanding spirit from there is guarding Savitri all the while, and it is that which is rushing into human Savitri. It seemed to come from inaccessible heights, and yet was intimate with all the world. That Shakti, that power, has concern with this world. It is intimate, it is close to the blight of this world, to the possibilities which can happen and grow and flourish in this world. It is in direct contact with this world. At the same time, it is inaccessible, and yet was intimate with all the world and knew the meaning, the steps of time, the moments of time, the course of events, the sequence of happenings. It has full knowledge of it. It has the knowledge of all the moments of time. It has what we would call Trikala Drishti. It knows the past, it knows the present, it knows the future, and knew the meaning of the steps of time. It has Trikala Drishti when we see from our point of view. The eye has opened, the Divya Chakshu has opened, the divine eye has opened. It sees things. It sees all the moments of time, the past, the present, the future. Trikala Drishti has opened. The moment that voice makes its entry on Savitri's forehead, and knew the meaning of the steps of time, and saw eternal destinies, changeless scene, filling the far prospect of the cosmic gaze. It has the sweep of the entire creation of the cosmos, of the universe. And it has pervaded every nook and corner of this creation. It knows what is happening, what is going to happen, what must happen. It has the full knowledge of all those things. Above her brows where will and knowledge meet, A mighty voice invaded mortal space. It seemed to come from inaccessible heights, and yet was intimate with all the world, and knew the meaning of the steps of time, and saw eternal destinies, changeless scene, filling the far prospect of the cosmic gaze. That is how the yogic life of Savitri begins. It is the transcendental tantra which is getting into operation in Savitri. As said, Savitri's forest center has opened. The two petals have opened out fully. The two petals also would indicate the manifest and the unmanifest, Shiva and Shakti. In the Tantric language, it would mean Shiva and Shakti. It is these which have now come into operation, will and knowledge. These have already opened. Will, Shakti. Knowledge, Shiva. He has a knowledge of everything. And these two centers now have come into operation. This center has come now into operation. The manifest and the unmanifest. What is manifest? What is going to manifest? It is that which Savitri has to attain. And she has launched us straight away on the occult yogic path, on the path of the occult, luminous occult, the luminous Tantra Yoga. In contrast to the beginning of Savitri's Yoga, we had Ashwapati's Yoga, which is of the Vedantic kind, belonging to the Adhyatma, the spiritual. He is climbing the ascending slopes of heaven. Ashwapati is climbing, his yoga begins with the climbing of the ascending slopes of heaven, Arohana. Savitri's yoga is beginning with straightway the descent of the Supreme Voice into her being. That is the difference between the yoga of Ashwapati and Savitri. He is climbing up ascending slopes of heaven. Savitri's yoga is beginning with the coming down of the Mahavakya, the voice, the command, the summons. It is that which makes the beginning of Savitri's yoga. Now, functionally, these two are different, and therefore also in terms of realizations, the two yogas have different possibilities. Ashwapati's yoga is for a certain purpose. Savitri's yoga is for a certain purpose. And it is in relationship with these two that the yogas are being described here also. Savitri's yoga is for the conquest of death. Ashwapati's yoga is to bring down the divine power upon the earth so that it is through her the divine manifestation can take place. His main concern is to bring down the divine power upon the earth. And whatever is required for that, he is going to do it. Whatever hardships are involved, howsoever painful and severe may be the path, Ashwapati is going to face all those difficulties. He is going to meet all the challenges of the antagonist powers which would come in the way of the descent of the divine Shakti upon the earth. Severe and painful, that is how Sri Aurobindo describes his yoga. severe and painful. Mother also speaks about Sri Aurobindo, he who has suffered, struggled for us, achieved for all us, who has struggled for us, who has suffered for us. That is the divine avatar's work in order to bring down the supreme power upon the earth. He has to suffer, for that he suffered. Savitri's yoga is for a different purpose. And it is in relationship with that the divine power is descending straight away into the center of will and knowledge. So last time we had just started the second canto of the book of Yoga, the parable of the search for the soul. We had read a few lines also, but let us look into the title of the canto itself, the parable, the search for the soul. It looks rather strange why the yogi poet is calling this canto a parable. And what is a parable? In what context it is going to convey this sense, which is not really so common with the word used in most of the places. Parable as a fiction, as a story, as a narrative, as a fable. Is it in this context that he is using the word parable? Certainly, it cannot be so. It could be, if at all we have to say something connected with it in a literary sense, it could be an analogy, it could be a discourse, it could be an epilogue. Even these words do not really convey the sense of the word parable which is present here in the title. So let us first see what exactly we could understand from the word parable. Parable is something which is having Greek, Latin origin. Parable, para, beside, beyond. And bowl, to throw, to cause. So if you go by the etymological sense of the word parable, beside or beyond, and to throw, it means that it is having a connotation of indicating something which is not directly conveyed by the story, but which is incorporated in a certain sense in the story itself. That is what it would mean basically here. So parable is a placing beside something. It is a search for the soul, and it is indicative of that particular search which is being conveyed here. Listen. It is an earthly story with heavenly meaning, celestial sense, with something supernatural which is going to happen here. It is a common, mundane narrative, but indicating something which is going to be supernatural in its contents. Now the word parable occurs at a couple of places in Sri Aurobindo's writings. elsewhere also. For instance, we have the description of the 10 avatars of Vishnu, which he calls as the parable of evolution, a sort of a narrative, figuratively presented in the parable, in the story, in the narrative of evolution. The 10 avatars of Vishnu, Matsya, starting from the fish. We got 10 avatars here. Let me just go to them. Matsya, fish, then Kurma, tortoise, Varaha, boar, Narasimha, half man, half lion, Vamana, the dwarf, Parshurama, Rama with the axe, then Rama, that is Ramachandra, as we would call him. Following him is Krishna, and then Buddha is also included in the series of these 10 avatars as the 9th avatar. Buddha, Krishna, Buddha, and then of course the last avatar is Kalki avatar. So we have got Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha, Vamana, Parshuram, Rama, Krishna, Buddha, and Kalki, the last avatar, 10th avatar, the appearance of the eternal in this creation. That is what Kalki avatar means. Now each avatar has a specific function in the evolution of consciousness on earth. And the way in which this is described here, fish, tortoise, boar, man, lion, the dwarf, Rama, the mental being, Krishna, the overmind avatar, the avatar of the Supreme, presenting himself as the overmind Vishnu here, and then Buddha. Now, in one place, Sri Aurobindo says that although historically Buddha follows Krishna, but in terms of the spiritual work, he precedes Krishna. He comes before Krishna in terms of spiritual work. Now it is in the context of nothing but inconscience coming in the way of the higher manifestation. That is what one could say that is represented by Buddha. Nirvana. Remove everything. Blow out all that belongs to the inconscience and go into the absolute, so that you are absolutely clean of all these inconscient things. The sin, the desire, Trishna, or whatever you want to call it, they are no more present there at all. And what would remain will be the pure self, not even God, the pure self. It is in that foundation that the work of Krishna would proceed in establishing the overmind consciousness in the physical. Krishna comes for that. Rama came for the mental consciousness. Krishna comes for the overmind consciousness. Kalki will come, or perhaps has come, for establishing the higher, the transcendental consciousness, the eternal himself. And in that sense, it is the last avatar in the series of these 10 avatars. Now, this narration of the avatars in the Puranas is a clear indication of the progressive nature of the evolution in the earth consciousness. It is having a great similarity, so to say, with the biological evolution starting from fish to man and perhaps even beyond that. The similarity is very distinct, very prominent, very noticeable in this context. But basically, it is the establishment of the higher consciousness successively. That is what is presented here. The progression is striking, starting from fish all the way to Kalki. The progression is striking, and of course it is unmistakable what is going to happen in the course of evolution of consciousness, which also prepares the necessary body for expression. So when the eternal comes here, the Kalki, automatically, so to say, or necessarily, the physical body also will be prepared for that expression. It will not be a body born of the inconscient stuff. The body will awaken to its divine sense, to its divine reality, and express the eternal in terms of manifestation or the possibility of the spirit in this creation. That is what is going to happen with the arrival of the Kalki avatar, and the process has already begun in the occult physical. The object of avatar is to lead the evolution on this earth, and the parable is in that sense very significant. That is the parable of the evolution in the Puranic tradition. Well, we could also say that this description of Parshurama, Rama, Krishna, Buddha in the series of 10 avatars has to be post-Buddhistic. The Purana, which are expressing this thing, must have been composed or written or given after the birth of Buddha. Buddha is therefore recognized by the Puranas as an avatar, which is very great, very significant. It is not as the founder of the religion we call Buddhism that we recognize him, but as one who sees the necessity of nirvana to purify oneself fully from the stigma of inconscience is what Buddha is doing, is achieving. And the Puranas do recognize the contribution of Buddha, of that avatar, in the series of this avatarhood. In fact, in the Srimad Gita, Sri Aurobindo speaks of Christ also as an avatar. Krishna, Christ, Buddha. He says that also. Now the avatarhood of Christ, or even perhaps for that matter of the Buddha, may not be exactly in the same line as the avatars of Vishnu in the nature of Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha, Vamana, Parshurama, Rama, Krishna. It could be another line of avatarhood. Still, the presence of Buddha in the main line is necessary, is significant, and has to be there. The avatarhood of Christ is important because it is the opening of the divine, opening to the divine of the individual psychic being, the power of love, the expression of love. It is that which has been established by Christ's avatarhood. So it is not, in that sense, something which is in the line of consciousness. It is more in the nature of the occult and inner contents of growth that is being conveyed by the avatarhood of Christ. And from that angle we can say that he belongs to a slightly different line. Yet that is also necessary for the collective manifestation of the divine in this creation, the avatarhood. Now, it is that parable what is being conveyed in the parable of evolution. We are talking here now the parable of the search for the soul. The word parable is very familiar to those who have read some of the stories narrated by Christ himself. He would express, he would give instructions in terms of explanations to people, simple people, by using parables as a sort of an illustrative story. That is how he would explain his doctrines, his ideas, his teachings to people in the course of time. We have, therefore, the sense of parable as something which is designed use of language. Language has been designed for a specific purpose to convey some secret meaning, some esoteric sense, something which is not immediately grasped by the common man, but through the parable he kind of gets a notion of what could be behind it. And it is that we call a parable. Designed use of language to convey some secret meaning. In fact, Christ is said to have told that he will open his mouth with parables. He will explain things in terms of parables. I will open my mouth in parables. This is what he would do. And some of the famous parables are, we are aware of them in several contexts. But maybe we can quickly revise those ideas which are conveyed by the term parable. We have got first, of course, the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now, it may look like a moral story, but it conveys something deep, something very spiritual also, something which has intimate psychological, psychic relationship with things around. And it is that which is now being conveyed here in terms of parable. When you have got the parable of the Good Samaritan, what happens there? A traveler is going from Jerusalem to Jericho, and on the way he is caught by the robbers. All his belongings are taken away from him. He is beaten. He is almost half dead and is abandoned and the robbers run away. This man remains there helpless, lying on the road. A priest comes, looks at him, and walks away. He doesn't kind of care for him. He would not like to touch a traveler, the simple person. A Levitan comes. He also looks at him and walks away. The poor man does not get any help from the higher members of the society. But then comes a Samaritan. He looks at his plight. He is touched. He does not see that this man who is lying here in a helpless state is a Jew. He does not see that. The Samaritan and the Jews, they are traditional enemies. But he keeps aside all those things and he goes and helps him. He lifts him up, gives him a water drink, makes him walk, and gives whatever help is required for the person to go on. So this is the role of the Good Samaritan. Obviously, it is a story which looks a story with a moral. But surely there are deeper meanings also. We could see them in different contexts, in a different manner. Then of course there is another parable, the parable of the prodigal son. We're all familiar with that. A rich man, an old man, he had two sons. And the younger son wanted to go away and live his own independent life. Therefore he asked his father to give him the share of his property. The father gives him what is due to him. The son, young man, goes out into the world, falls into bad habits, squanders away all the money. He has left nothing. He is left with nothing, and comes back to his father's place. The father receives him cordially. In fact, he arranges a feast for him. In his honor, he arranges a feast. But his elder son refuses to attend the feast. The father tells him, look, he has repented. He is coming back for help. He has washed away his faults, and it is appropriate now for us to give him the necessary help. So the prodigal son is received with full consideration by his father, and whatever is due to him is given to him again. And the elder son also recognizes the importance of what his father was telling. Now that is again a story which is perhaps in a social context, but at the same time it has a deeper sense. There is another story, in fact there are a couple of parables like that. We may be quickly looking at them to get some idea. The parable of the lost coin. An old woman, she had 10 coins, 10 drachmas. But in the night, one of the coins fell down on the road. She lit up a candle and started searching for the lost coin. She went around here and there, everywhere, and finally she found the lost coin. It is not that the remaining 9 coins would not have sufficed her. It is not that question. The question is the value of money, of drachma. It is that which should not get lost. The coin come back, coin may get lost also, but the value which is associated with it, that should not get lost. And it is that which is illustrated by the simple example of the old woman lighting a candle in the darkness looking for the lost coin. We have lost our soul in the night. We have to light a candle and look for it. The parable or the search for the soul is something of that kind. We have to look for the soul by lighting a candle. Then of course we have another parable, the parable of the lost sheep. A shepherd had 100 sheep, but one sheep in the evening got lost, got strayed away and could not be easily found. There were only 99 sheep left. The shepherd had 2 options. One is not to risk the remaining 99 sheep, but take them back home and see about the lost sheep next day. The other option is have the conviction that nothing will happen to the 99 sheep and look for the lost sheep. Look for the sheep which is lost. It is the second option which he accepted, which he implemented. He went around and looked for the lost sheep. And after good search, he found the lost sheep. He picked it up, put it on his shoulder, and brought it back to the other 99 sheep which were there, and then throw all the 100 sheep to the place which was. Now that is the parable of the lost sheep. Well, let me narrate one more parable, the last parable in the present series here. The parable of what is called 10 virgins. The bridegroom was to arrive in the evening for the celebration, for the festival, for the occasion. Now all these 10 maidens, they waited for him. They lighted a candle and waited for the arrival of the bridegroom. But for some reason, he became late. The 5 maidens, they kept on waiting for him, and the other 5 maidens, they got impatient and they walked away. These 5 who remained there, they kept the lamp burning throughout the night and waited for the bridegroom. And finally, he arrived, and these 5 maidens were extremely happy. Those other 5 who had no patience to wait, they missed the occasion. They missed the feast. They missed the celebration, the patience, the devotion for the bridegroom. It is that which gave these 5 maidens the beautiful reward. Now again, this is something very significant in its own sense. Now it is in this manner that Christ was educating the people in those days. they got the necessary sense, they got what is to be done in life, what is actually the meaning of all these things. Now, this conveying the deeper sense of life to the common man was important at that period of time. In that part of the world, he was dealing with a certain type of people, and it is through them that things had to change. Now these parables, these kind of things which are there in the Bible in great number, may not much appeal to the Indian mind. They may look very trivial sort of things. The way of teaching was different. In the days of Christ, in those tribes, there was no point in giving them the Upanishadic teaching, the Vedic teaching. It was absolutely out of the place to read to them the life divine, to read to them Savitri. It was a certain necessity for a certain period, for a certain kind of a psychic development, that he had adopted this method of narrating spiritual facts and truths and revelations in terms of parable. In that sense, they have a significance, they have a meaning, they have a content. But more than that, what we should recognize in these parables is establishing the psychic element in the common simple masses. It is a sort of an awakening of the psychic in people, in the collective life. That is the contribution of Christ's avatar. Upanishads, they are very lofty, they are very great. They will talk of self, of Satyam, Mritam, Brat, all those great things, spiritual things. They are meant for a different type of an individual and a group of people. But when there has to be a collective awakening, if things had to happen here for a collective manifestation, it is not that only a certain sector of people is lifted up to high heavens or reach the transcendental worlds. If there has to be a manifestation of the divine presence upon earth, we have to take care of all these simple people also. And for that, the psychic opening is the best possible way of carrying out the mission for which Christ had come, for which he had suffered also, for which he had paid the price also. It is that avatarhood which comes out in the story of the parable. Savitri's parable, Search of the Soul, is really that search. It is the value which that old woman is looking for in the lost coin. She is not craving for the coin. She is craving for the value of that coin. She is searching for that. She is lighting a candle in the night and looking around here and there, everywhere, that lost coin. The coin is already there in her soul, deep in her, but that has to be found. And that value has to be put into action. That is what the parable would really mean. Well, this is what the title would convey to us, the parable of the search for the soul. And it is here we see how rapidly Savitri's yoga begins and how rapidly it progresses with tremendous epic speed. The poet has already launched on the parable, and she has to make rapid progress. Hardly a couple of days are at her disposal. She must now enshrine in her soul the full divine power so that she can meet tomorrow the God of death and conquer him, win victory over him. Last time we have seen some of the aspects of what the Canto is calling the parable of the search for the soul. The parable as a kind of a designed language describing something very specific in the context of what Savitri is going to do. That is the connotation or the phrase parable or the search for the soul in Savitri. It is not in the sense of the parables told by Christ, the stories he was narrating to people who had simple mind and simple understanding of things. This is a deeper parable connected with the search of the soul of Savitri. Savitri, who herself is the divine incarnate, the Supreme Mother incarnate, and she is going to search the soul, which means that she has taken a human birth, and in the human birth she has to first find the soul. Let us first read the relevant parts before we go into some of these details. As in the vigilance of the sleepless night, through the slow, heavy-footed, silent hours, repressing in her bosom its load of grief, she sat staring at the dumb tread of time and the approach of ever-nearing fate. A summons from her being summit came, a sound, a call that broke the seals of night. Above her brows, where well and knowledge met, a mighty voice invaded mortal space. It seemed to come from inaccessible heights, and yet was intimate with all the world, and knew the meaningless steps of time, and saw eternal destinies, changeless scene, filling the far prospect of the cosmic gaze. As the voice touched, her body became a stark and rigid golden statue of motionless trance. A stone of God lit by an amethyst soul. Around her body's stillness, all grew still. Her heart listened to slow, measured beats. Her mind, renouncing thought, heard and was mute. Why camest thou to this dumb, death-bound earth? This ignorant life beneath indifferent skies, tied like a sacrifice on the altar of time. O Spirit, O immortal energy, if it was to nurse grief and helpless heart, or with heart careless eyes, awake thy doom. Arise, O soul, and vanquish time and death. That is the command the voice is bringing. Arise, O soul, and vanquish time and death. Now, we already have here something very deep, something very significant, something of a far-reaching consequence in the yogic life of Savitri, which is about to begin. Her life begins with a summons coming from the summit of her being, from the Supreme Self of hers. The summons is coming to the human Savitri, who is the part of that Supreme Savitri herself. So it is one Savitri who is addressing to the other Savitri. She has taken a mortal birth, and it is the voice of the immortal birth which is guiding her, initiating her rather, on this yogic journey which is about to begin. Now there are a couple of things which may be sort of pertinent if we are going to read in Savitri the yogic life of the mother. Here in Savitri, Savitri is receiving the summons from her being's summit. Did the mother receive any command like that, any summons to begin her yogic life? It may be sort of foolish on our part to ask that question, but it has a certain pertinence also if we are going to link up Savitri with the mother. The mother never received any command, any summons. She was born already with that yogic consciousness. It had only to flower out and grow and get into action. There was no question of her receiving the command. Command, to a certain extent, in a certain context, was received by Shrivendu, but not by the mother. She was constantly in communion with her central being. She had identified herself with the Supreme Lord right from the beginning. And whatever had to happen in her life was only a question of unfolding of things in a yogic way. But in Savitri receiving the summons is to be seen not in a temporal context. It has to be seen in the ageless context, in the context of the work Savitri has been doing through the ages, life after life, since the beginning of the earth. Whenever and wherever there was a possibility of the manifestation of the Supreme, she was always present. And it is in that context that the Savitri is receiving the summons, the command, the imperative that she must set herself on the yogic path. Yogic path for what purpose? That is also defined uniquely, distinctly, to vanquish time and death. To vanquish time and death. So the entire context of Savitri's yoga is winning the victory over time and death, Kala and Yama. It is over them she has to win the victory. And to win this victory, therefore, the death of Satyavan becomes a yogic pretext, an occasion that she can confront, meet face to face death and conquer him in the occult battle. So that is the purpose of the initiation of Savitri on the yogic path. A summons from her being summit came, a sound, a call that broke the seals of night, N capital, under tamasa, the darkness, the primordial darkness, and the seals of that primordial darkness, they had to be broken. So, Savitri's yoga is founded in a very specific manner for breaking the seals of the night, for conquering time and death. And whatever she has to do, she will do in that context, in relationship with that. Above her brows, here, where will and knowledge meet, a mighty voice invaded mortal space. A mighty voice, the voice of the Supreme Savitri herself, is coming and making an impact on her forehead, where knowledge and will meet. The Ajna Chakra is the place where the impact is first made. Knowledge, to know the steps of time, will to conquer time and death. So again, the functionality of the arrival of the voice on the forehead center, Ajna Chakra, where the command is received, where the command comes, becomes very pertinent. In fact, the poetry of Savitri is yogically very tight, very coherent, very functional also. Every word, every phrase has a kind of an interconnectedness with her yogic work. Above her brows, where will and knowledge meet, a mighty voice invaded mortal space. The immortal voice is invading the mortal space. Savitri's Ajna Chakra has got kindled, awoken. Now, we must also appreciate one very important thing in this context. The book 7 is called the Book of Yoga. This is a book of yoga describing Savitri's yoga. It is not your yoga, mine yoga, not even Ashwapati's yoga, not even Shyabendu's yoga. It is specifically the yoga of the mother. Our yoga will be of a different type, depending upon the preparation and indeed of our soul. So let us not be under the illusion that, well, let us follow the book of yoga. No, it is not meant for us. It is for Savitri alone, because it is she who is going to conquer time and death. We are not in a position to conquer time and death. Even if our soul becomes extremely powerful, it is still too small to conquer time and death. It is only the soul of Savitri who, after receiving the full power of Supreme Savitri, who can conquer time and death. So what we are going to see is how Savitri is going to proceed on the yogic path of us, and that is the only way of our trying to get to some extent into the spirit of Savitri's yoga. And in the process, something might awaken in us and put us also on our own individual yogic path. That distinction is important. So when a mighty voice invades mortal space, it is again in the context of Savitri. It seemed to come from inaccessible heights. The poet is saying it seems, but actually it is coming. For the mortal eye, the place may be invisible, and therefore he is telling it to us that it seems to come from some inaccessible heights, and yet was intimate with all the world. The purpose of that voice coming is again for the benefit of this world, for the good of this world. It has that warmth, that intimacy with its creation. Something has to happen here. The consciousness of time and death has to happen here for this creation, not for Savitri. Savitri is immortal already. She doesn't need that victory for herself. That victory is for this creation. And therefore it is intimate with all the world, and knew the meaning of the steps of time. Knew the meaning of the steps of time. The 3 steps of time, the past, the present, the future. That voice knows what was there in the past, what is going to happen today. Savitri's husband is going to die today. It knows that. What is going to happen tomorrow? The new manifestation arising out of that death. It knows all these things. And therefore contextually, the coming of the voice is to build up the entire temporal force to achieve that result. And saw eternal destinies, changeless scene, filling the far prospect of the cosmic gaze. That is what this voice sees. The cosmic gaze is filled with its look. In the steps of time, it knows what is going to happen. And the voice touched her body, Savitri's body. Savitri is an extremely good recipient of this tremendous force. She is not shaken. She is not shattered. Her adhara is powerful enough, stable enough to receive the full force of the invading voice. And the voice touched her body, became a stark and rigid golden statue of motionless trance. A stone of God lit by an amethyst soul. Now again, this is very powerful mystic poetry with all the deep occult symbolism present everywhere. A stone of God. Savitri is still like a stone, marble, beautiful, bright, well lit, stable. Stone of God, lit by an amethyst soul. Amethyst. Why amethyst? Why not sapphire? Why not emerald? Why not diamond? Well, the poet is a yogi. The poet has vast knowledge of things. The poet is also well learned in Greek mythology. He knows the connotations of these Greek mythological symbolisms. Amethyst. Amethyst. Means not. Taste. Get drunk. One who does not get drunk, that is what the word amethyst means. Well, there is a story, but we can see that thing separately about amethyst. Amethyst is a stone of which the cups were made, and the Greek gods and the Greek heroes drank wine from that cup made of amethyst. The belief being that whatever quantity of wine you drink, you would not get drunk with it. Now therefore, why is the poet here referring a stone of God lit by an amethyst soul, when the divine power is going to pour into the soul, when the divine energy, when the divine ananda, the divine ecstasy is going to pour into the soul, it is not going to get drunk with it. It can keep on receiving inexhaustibly, more and more continuously of that divine power. That is already the quality of Savitri's soul, its receptivity, that it keep on receiving the divine splendor which is pouring into her soul. That is the kind of a stone Savitri has already become, amethyst soul, lit by the amethyst soul. A stone of God, which is a golden statue of motionless trance. It is under that conditions the yogic knowledge, yogic initiation is pouring into the soul of Savitri. Around her body stillness, all grew still. Around her body stillness, not only Savitri, but the entire place. The hut in which Savitri is dwelling, the rooms, the kitchen, the hermitages around, the ashramas of the rishis, the forest, the trees, the surroundings, Everything is charged with that presence now. There is a sudden change in the atmosphere the moment that voice comes and touches Savitri. Those who are perceptive, those who have that spiritual sense, they immediately feel the difference that something else has happened here. The rishis in the forest, they realize that some different power has come down here and is entering into the life. Around her body stillness, all grew still. Her heart listened with slow, measured beats. Her mind, renouncing thought, heard and was mute. It fell silent. She is in the state of silent mind, where nothing of her who is going to disturb the invading voice, affect the invading power. And what does the voice say? Why camest thou to this damned, death-bound earth? Tell me, what is the purpose of your coming here? You are standing here helpless. You are stricken with grief. The affliction is present in your soul. But is it for that purpose that you have come here? Yes, the grief's self has become calm. It can receive the command. But now it has prepared itself to get going on the yogic path. This ignorant life beneath indifferent skies, tied like a sacrifice at the altar of time, are you a creature who is now tied at the stakes, ready to be sacrificed to the gods? You are not here for that purpose. You are here to conquer time and death. Tied like a sacrifice on the altar of time. O Spirit, O immortal energy, if it was to nurse grief in a helpless heart, or with heart, tearless eyes, awake, thy doom. You have not come here for that purpose. It is a rhetorical question. Savitri, you have not come here to accept grief and sorrow and suffering. Get rid of it and awake and be prepared to vanquish time and death. That is the command which is coming from our Summit's self, Summit's being. Now, this is also poetically put in a very powerful, in a very artistic manner. Let us read this command which Savitri is saying. Why camest thou to this damned, death-bound earth? This ignorant lie beneath indifferent skies, tied like a sacrifice at the altar of time. O Spirit, O immortal energy, if it was to nurse grief in a helpless heart, or with hard, careless eyes, awake thy doom. Arise, O soul, and vanquish time and death. So this is the command in 10 lines. Savitri is receiving. The voice has touched the forehead, her will and power, knowledge, they got awakened, and she has now to get ready. Now let us see the poetry of these few lines. Very interesting, very powerful. The poet The yogi, as a poet, as an artist, has brought out several shades into this brief description. Why camest thou to this dumb, death-bound earth? This line is heavy in syllables. Why camest thou to this dumb, death-bound earth? You have, in a simple line like this, metrically and in a very unusual manner, three spondees. Why camest thou to this dumb, death-bound earth? It comes with a kind of a thrust, with a force. The voice is speaking straight away with a tremendous force, with full impact. The spondees coming in the line. Then this, to some extent, it is softened in the next line. This ignorant life beneath indifferent skies. The line is kind of expanding out slowly. This ignorant life, you have here an am, an anarchist. Again, and I am anarchist. The line is moving forward, climbing up. This ignorant life beneath indifferent skies, in contrast with why camest thou to this dumb, death-bound earth? The meter, the rhythm, they bring the full force of the voice, tied like a sacrifice on the altar of time, tied like, it starts with a heavy syllable, tied like a turkey, a sacrifice. Here and am, sacrifice, on the altar, anarchist, of time, again, anarchist. See, the variation of the meter brings a sort of a rhythmic force into the entire passage. O Spirit, O immortal energy, again, I am, Pyrrhic, I am, Pyrrhic. If it was to nurse grief in a helpless heart, basically again I am iambic line with a dip of a talking in between. Or with heart tearless eyes awake thy doom. Arise, O soul, and vanquish time and death. This line is a perfect iambic line. All the 5 feet are iambic. Arise, O soul, and vanquish time and death. The rhythm is consistent. It is kind of beating. It must happen, must happen, must happen, must happen. Arise, O soul, and vanquish time and death. So that is the assertive nature of the voice itself here. Now, there is one more point which may be of some interest. This line, what we have here in the first edition of Savitri is, or with heart tearless eyes, awake thy doom. Tearless eyes, awake thy doom. This is what we have here. The latest edition of Savitri makes this awake as await, or with thy heart tearless eyes, await thy doom.